A lot of fans were taking shots at the Cowboys. The Cowboys were on Hard Knocks, talking about how bad their defense is going to be this year and what Dak Prescott's going to be if the real Dak Prescott's actually going to show up. The first 4 or 5 games last year, Dak Prescott was on a tear. He was playing great football. Some people were talking about an MVP candidate. Yeah, Dak Prescott, an MVP candidate. The way he was throwing the ball, he broke a record in one of the games. I think he had 4 or 5 touchdowns, threw over 400 yards or something of that magnitude.
He had 3 400-yard games in the 4 full games he played, which is, I believe, tied for any quarterback doing that last year, even ones that played all 16 games.
Yeah, but I will say this. On Thursday night, it looked like Dak Prescott was not out of football for that significant amount of time. He came in and he played at a top level. And anybody that talks about Tampa Bay and the Buccaneers, they have no weaknesses going into the season. They're the same team they were last year, just a little bit healthier with maybe 1 or 2 new additions. Tampa Bay's defense on Thursday night did not look as good as everybody made them out to be. Now, a lot of people were picking the Cowboys to lose like 52-7, 30-10. It wasn't even close.
Mine was 38-20.
The game came down to the end. The Cowboys were up, and then obviously with 1 minute and 30 seconds left of the game after they kicked the field goal, Tom Brady came. And we all know what Tom Brady can do, especially at the end of games, ruin games. And he has made so many comebacks over the years, not just in the regular season, in the playoffs. And that's why a lot of people call him the GOAT. Now, everybody knows my thoughts to who he was and who he is as a quarterback. I think he's the second greatest quarterback to ever play the game, right behind Joe Montana. But winning quarterback, there's nobody even close to Tom Brady. Tom Brady is a winner. Everywhere he's gone, he's won. And the guy, over the years, has just surprised me over and over and over again on how smart, and he doesn't need the athletic ability like a Russell Wilson or a Cam Newton or a Lamar Jackson. He needs to be smart. He needs to know the game. He's got to have good arm strength and a great arm, and he can put the ball where he needs to. And that's what he did Thursday night with 1 minute and 40 seconds left of the game, and practically won the game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Definitely a strong performance from Dak. Utilized the outside very well, and you really had to with those kinds of receivers' talents. I thought it was a good usage of those outside throws, tough back shoulder throws you saw on the first touchdown to CeeDee Lamb. Very impressive. They used a lot of different route combinations to get those receivers open, and Dak Prescott made all the throws he had to, 403 yards. Definitely not his fault that they lost the game. The Cowboys, their defense played, I guess, better than we expected. They got 4 turnovers, 2 interceptions,
played
2 fumbles.
Well, very well.
It was supposed to be a big weakness for them. They did a good job stopping the run, too. Leonard Fournette was the leading rusher for Tampa with just 32 yards on 9 carries. That has to show a little bit for Dallas's defense. Even though they lost the game, they showed a lot more than we expected. Antonio Brown and Chris Godwin were good.
Gronkowski was good,
and
too.
Gronk. None of those other ones were extremely dynamic. They contained Mike Evans well. They contained the running backs very well. They forced some turnovers, which is a good sign for that Dallas defense that both of us thought was going to be one of the worst in the league to start the season. Cowboys, the only main concerns, obviously Greg Zuerlein missing all the kicks he did, and Ezekiel Elliott, not a strong showing for him, just 11 carries, 33 yards. Got outplayed when it comes to scrimmage yards by his backup, Tony Pollard.
I will say this. When people go into games like this, the first game of the season, everybody was talking about Dak Prescott versus the champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that Dak Prescott is going to take a little while to figure things out. Dak Prescott pretty much led off from what he was last year before he got hurt against the Giants. 403 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. You couldn't play any better. 72.4 completion percentage. That's fantastic. When you talk about a quarterback that hasn't played in over a year with the injury that he had, some people said career-ending type of injury, right. That just shows you what Dak Prescott is as a player, a winner, a guy that doesn't quit. All the stories behind him, when his mom passed away, his brother committing suicide. This guy has been through so many things as a young quarterback as he is in the NFL. And he's only 28 years old. And the kid showed you last night why he's a special player for the Dallas Cowboys and why he is the leader of that Dallas Cowboy team. Now, as far as the Ezekiel Elliott in that running game, I told everybody about Mike McCarthy and what he doesn't like to do. He doesn't like to run the ball in the West Coast offense. Everybody knows the West Coast offense has been around. Every single coach is doing the West Coast offense now in the NFL. We talk about McVay, a talented offensive coordinator who became a coach. We talk about Kyle Shanahan, another West Coast offense type of coach. And then you talk about all the other coaches we were talking about over the last couple of years that have come into the league and dominated. But Mike McCarthy has been around for a very long time. He comes from that tree of coaches, and so does guys like Andy Reid. Andy Reid likes to run the ball and throw second. The West Coast offense could be used in different ways. I think Mike McCarthy's has failed. And the only reason why it has done well over the last couple of years is because he had great quarterbacks like a Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. And when you have quarterbacks that can throw the ball and do the things that they can do, it hides the deficiencies of the offense. Ezekiel Elliott had a terrible game. I don't blame Ezekiel Elliott. I blame the play calling. And that has a lot to do with the offensive coordinator over there, who's absolutely horrendous. And then, obviously, Mike McCarthy on what he does and doesn't like to do. So the Dallas Cowboys lost a head-scratcher, a game they could have won. I feel bad for some of the Dallas Cowboy fans. No, I don't. But I feel bad the fact that my friend, the Beeve, he said that the Cowboys got screwed. Now,
no.
If he wants to blame the referees in the game was so close. I thought it was very well called when it came to the referees, and that's crazy to say because I think the referees stink in the NFL. And with the crazy new rules that they're adding every single year or getting rid of, you would think that it was going to be a highly bad called game. It wasn't. I think it was a fantastic game. Great first game of the season. It came down to the wire. It wasn't disappointed by Tom Brady or Dak Prescott. So they both should definitely get the credit of a great Thursday night first game of the season.
Yeah, both receiving cores, both quarterbacks played very well as a whole. The rest of the games were kind of sloppy when it came to, not the refereeing. I agree with you on the refereeing. They didn't call as much as I did. I don't think that was pass interference at the end that like a lot of the Cowboys fans did. I thought it was just hand fighting. Godwin was holding, yeah, I understand that, but the corner was also holding his left arm too, so that wasn't a penalty. There was a little bit of sloppiness. I don't think either coach really had a great showcase of play calling. I think both defenses had their woes too. Like you were saying, the Buccaneers secondary, outside of Davis, their number one corner, really got exposed after Bunting got hurt, and even their pass rush wasn't as good as you thought it would be against the Cowboys' banged-up offensive line. So there's definitely some flaws and some sloppy play that you saw from both teams, but it's week one. It's something that they could definitely overcome as the season goes along. But I think the biggest takeaway for Dallas is a better than expected showing from their defense. You got to give them some credit.
Absolutely.
4 turnovers.
Absolutely. You have to give a lot of credit for the coaching over there, because who would have thought that the Dallas Cowboys, the strength of their team yesterday was keeping their team in the game by their defense. But let's get into some New York projections, but let's go into the Giants first. And going into the season, there's a lot of thoughts to this Giant team. This is a make-or-break year for a guy like Daniel Jones. And Gettleman, his job is dangling for the New York Giants. He needs to get this quarterback moving in the right direction. Do you believe that the Giants have done enough competing in a very weak division? I don't want to hear about Tyler and all these different people saying that it's not a weak division. That is a weak division. The best team in a division is the Washington football team. Right. Who would have thought that we would be talking about the Washington football team, which, by the way, has a projected journeyman quarterbacking for the starting of the season, and they have no future at that position. So what makes you think that the Giants this year can take off with the division that they're in?
Their division is definitely weak. It should get better from last year. I can't imagine it being like egregiously worse than it was last year, but yeah, it's a weak division. So it's definitely possible, but there's a lot of things that have to happen for the Giants. This offensive line is the biggest question mark for me. They lost Zietler in the offseason and really didn't have a surefire plan to replace that. They get Nate Solder back. He sat out the year last year, but is Nate Solder going to actually play well is another question. He hasn't played well yet in a Giants uniform. Andrew Thomas, which side of him will we see? He had some struggles in the preseason. He played better in the second half of the regular season last year, but that's the biggest one for me. And in addition to Daniel Jones, sensing pressure and limiting the turnovers, because if their offense could be a little more efficient to go along with that defense, it'll definitely be helpful to steal some games that they normally wouldn't be able to steal. Injury is obviously a big concern with the offense. I don't like Galladay. He's very inconsistent even when he is on the field, and they gave him a lot of money. Saquon Barkley, he's expected to play. I just hope he doesn't re-injure anything. And the Broncos, who they play this week, are normally tough against the run, so that's still going to be a tough matchup regardless. And in terms of the matchup against the Broncos, they're very similar teams right now, the way they're stayed. The questionable quarterback, Bridgewater starting for Denver. Obviously, Daniel Jones with big question marks for the Giants. Both have good secondaries. Both have good interior rushes, middle of the field defense. But the Broncos are probably more complete of a team right now, even though the Giants are the home team. So the Giants will definitely have to take advantage of their receivers against that secondary and vice versa. Can they win those matchups against the Broncos' young receivers will be a big question, too, in that matchup. Because the Giants' strengths are pretty obvious. They're great interior, Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence, and their secondary is very strong. Can the rest of their defense do that? And offensively, the same kind of thing. Receivers, if Galladay doesn't play, who will take over?
I think the big question mark is Saquon Barkley. If Saquon Barkley comes out strong this year, remember, the guy's barely played for 2 years. Great, fabulous rookie season. Yes, his second season, he had over 1,000 yards. People on our network comparing him to Barry Sanders have no idea why you would compare Saquon Barkley, who's barely played in the NFL, to a Barry Sanders who played 10 straight seasons where he was a dominant force. But Saquon Barkley is a big part of where this team is going to go this year. If he is 100% healthy and he can play at the top of his game, this team could absolutely come out in this division. This division is definitely winnable. You talk about the Cowboys yesterday. If the Cowboys play the way they did against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Super Bowl champions, where everybody thinks that they're going to have the opportunity to again to win a Super Bowl, the Cowboys could be very dangerous too. But being that this division is so open and so winnable, if Saquon Barkley can run 1,400 yards this year, catch the ball in the backfield, do the things that he is strong out and dominate at the line of scrimmage, well, then the Giants have a working force behind the line of scrimmage. As far as Kenny Golladay, the thing about Kenny Golladay that scares me for the New York Giants is injuries. Now, is he worth $76 million, $78 million that he got from the Giants? I would say no. But could he be a back-end number one guy? There's a possibility. I like Kenny Golladay when he played for the Lions. The problem with Kenny Golladay is he would disappear in certain games, and then he would reappear in these games where he has 180 yards, 170 yards, and looks like Julio Jones. So when I think of Kenny Golladay, I want to see more consistency. Now, Daniel Jones is going to have a lot behind that. He is going to have to get the ball out as quick as he possibly can, stop dropping the ball, stop fumbling the ball, and play at the top of his game that we have not seen. Ever since he came out of college in Duke, everybody said his weakness was when he gets out of the pocket, he doesn't hold on to the ball, he loses the ball. The significance of the Giants season is going to be turnovers this year because there are deficiencies in this team. Now, are they ready to be a Super Bowl contender? I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender, but we've said that in 2011. We've also said that in 2007. I've always believed that if you have a good defensive line and a good offensive line, you can dominate. And the Giants' offensive line, we don't know what it is. There's so many questions to that offensive line. Defensively, we know what the Giants can do. We saw it last year. They could be a top 7, top 8 defense with Leonard Williams in that 4-3 defense transitioning to a 3-4. The question is, could they be as consistent as they were last year? And now that teams know what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are they going to be able to hide that? Now, the Giants' secondary got even better this offseason. Adding Jackson, this is a formidable top-end secondary in the NFL. I believe this could be the number 1 or number 2 secondary in football. That's how talented it is. With free agents, some of the draft stock that they've had over the last couple of years with Love, who looked pretty good this preseason. I want to see the Giants really take that next step in the secondary. So when you talk about the Giants and going into season and you're talking about the Broncos, you thinking that the Broncos are going to squeak into the playoffs.
I think
my
last
crazy.
Playoff team.
I think the Broncos are a team that could absolutely be a winnable game for the New York Giants. Now, what do the Giants need to do to beat the Broncos? Well, first of all, control the line of scrimmage. That's something they really need to do. That means a lot of Saquon Barkley. You need to use the running game. What the running game does is open up the outside and the edges, which could open up for Tony, could open up for Golladay, could open up for Ingram, Kyle Rudolph. These big wide receivers. Kenny Golladay is not a small guy. He's 6'3", has some speed on the outside, has unbelievable length when he plays. The question is, can they do the things that a lot of people think they can do this year to get them to that next level? That's something that we can't answer. The only person that can answer that is Joe Judge. Now, going into the second season of Joe Judge's coaching career, I want to see some development of these players. I want to see that they don't fall apart in the second half of the season. They do a continuing race to the finish line. This has been a problem for the New York Giants, and that's why they've gone through not 1, not 2, but 3 coaches in the last 6, 7 years. And this is not like the Giants. The Giants over the last 30, 40 years, besides this run since Tom Coughlin, they have gone through coach after coach after coach, a.k.a. the New York Jets. The Giants organization, Tom Coughlin, he was the coach for 11 years. Bill Parcells was the coach for 10 years. Look at the coaches and where they've been over the last 10 years. The Giants have gone through 3 or 4 coaches. So I want to see consistency. I think Joe Judge could be the answer of this organization. The questions really lie between the players and what they believe in this coach to be a success story moving on to this season.